The client has coffin nails and wants to go to stiletto, so I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly how I do that. So first off, I start off by just shaping off the sidewalls, and now here you can see me do this in real time. Do not worry about the top of the nail just yet. All we're going to do is kind of start little by little from the middle, filing each side just to make sure that this stiletto does stay symmetrical all the way through. So you're going to form that little peak, as you can see. Then after you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take off everything that's on the top. Also filing the sidewalls so that way you can also get rid of the bulk. So that way your nails, when it's finally prepped and ready for acrylic laying, they are going to be in the perfect stiletto form, so that way afterwards you don't have to do too much filing. The majority of it has already been done beforehand with your e-file. And you can also see me debulking from the bottom half of the nails. Now you do want to do this very gently, and I am a nail tech veteran. I have been doing this now for about 5 years, so I am a lot more skilled when it comes down to this area. But if you are not too comfortable with having to do the shaping with the e-file, feel free to go ahead and use a hand file instead. Now I went ahead and started cleaning up her cuticles, but I will say she did get a fill done by somebody else, and I was not too happy about that just because they did overwork the actual nail beds. If you can see in some of her fingers, there are rings of fire. Please do not ridicule me, you guys. It was not me that did it. It was her homegirl. Like, look at this. I would never do that to my clients. I mean, I was crying for her. They look so painful. So because of that, and this is the foundation that I have, and homegirl over here always has her nails on fleek. It was not a decision of not having to do her nails. It just meant that she could still do her nails, but we have to be very, very cautious. So very lightly, here I am buffing out her natural nail with a fine grit sanding bit. And this is what it's going to look like afterwards. I went ahead and added the dehydrator and primer, and we're going to go ahead and start doing the fill. As you can see though, after I've already used the e-file and shaped up all the nails, they look pretty good for the stiletto shape as a base. So we're going to go ahead and do the fill, and then of course you'll see me in real time get close to the cuticles. You can see how I lay everything, and I do it very slowly and gently. You don't see me trying to rush in between each finger, because if not, you could risk flooding the cuticles. Now, again, in my professional opinion, judging by the state of her natural nails before laying the acrylic, they were still in pretty good condition for me to go ahead and lay the acrylic on top. However, if you ever see a nail that has been dug into way too deep with the e-file to where a client is bleeding, that can pose risk of infection. So at that point, you're going to want to deny service. Of course, this has to do with the discretion of the nail tech. So it just depends on what you think professionally could be done to that nail. And it is indeed okay to deny service if necessary. But in this case, my client's nails, yes, were red and a little tender, but not to the point to where there is blood or any risk of having to have a infection. So we went ahead and proceeded with the acrylic laying. Now here all I'm doing is adding an extra little bead right in the middle of the nail, and it's a little further than the apex because it was just a little dent that I need to fill. After all of the nails were dried, I went ahead and started with the filing process. Now you can see exactly how it is I'm holding onto this nail. Whenever you have someone that has extendos or just very long nails in general, you want to support it with your fingers. You can see me holding it with my index on one side, applying pressure, so that way you're not bending the nail, and it's not every time you apply pressure to your nail, you're not bending or causing any kind of pain to the client. And you see me very firmly holding the nail from the base, so that way I have absolute control of the nail, and again thus preventing having to pull the nail or causing any kind of discomfort on my client. Now that both sides are perfectly sharp and even, it was time for me to go ahead and buff off the top of the nail. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that any jagged edges are completely gone. So you can see me going in this filing motion. I'm going to slow it down for you guys in a little bit so you can see exactly how it is that I buff off the top of the nail. Now, let me tell you, this is a 100-100 filing grit. And you can see this is the motion that I do for my hands. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a practice, especially if you just started doing nails. But little by little, keep practicing this method. And for me, I feel like it's a lot easier to cover the entire surface area of the acrylic nails with having to do this one swoop motion. I usually like to start from the top around the cuticles, or sometimes I do start from the base, I'm not gonna lie, from the free edge, but eventually I do end up hitting the entire nail. Now that little motion right there I only do for when I'm going on the right side of the nail, so that way I can go ahead and clean up the cuticle side, and then we're gonna go ahead and reach the very end. This is only at the end, the bottom of the nail, so that way everything is perfectly straight. Be careful not to overfile, because if not, you are going to create these little jagged edges, which if a client was to hit the nail, you will end up having little weak spots or cracks just by the tip of the nail. So afterwards, she did mention to me that she just wanted to do a French tip. And as you can see here, I went ahead and created the French tip rather quickly too. It's typically within the swoop of your wrist. So just use a very long liner brush, and then you're going to go down within one direction, almost flicking it, while you also do the same thing for the other side. And then the rest is just filling in any little imperfections that you did not like. At the end, this is what it's going to look like, and don't worry if yours is not perfect. You can always go in with a little bit of acetone and clean it all up. Now, we did paint some red bottoms, and that I just did with a regular gel polish and then cured it and then put top coat, but this is what we ended up doing at the end. I am absolutely obsessed. Please let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Love you guys. Bye.